Welcome to my 3 reasons for victory video. Now, for those of you tuning in for my 3 keys to the game video, that's not this one. I will have a 3 keys to the game video coming out in a couple of days, probably Wednesday, but this video is a little bit different. I'm trying to stay middle of the road on this one. I'm going to give 3 reasons why Boise State could win this game. I'm going to give 3 reasons why Oklahoma State could win this game. I'm going to start out with the Boise State reasons, and then we'll move on to the Oklahoma State reasons, and then I'm going to leave it up to you. I want you to tell me, who do you think is going to win this matchup, Boise State versus Oklahoma State? A huge game for both of these two programs. The first time a Big 12 current, that is, Big 12 member has traveled to the blue. TCU was in the Mountain West when they traveled to Boise State. So the first time a Big 12 member has traveled to the blue. Huge chance for both these programs to kind of right their seasons. Oklahoma State, of course, having a little bit of a disappointing start, 2-0, but a little bit of a disappointing start to their season after not beating Tulsa the way they wanted to and not playing great with their starting quarterback out in their first matchup. And then Boise State, of course, losing to UCF and wanting to try and get back into contention for some big things down the road. Winning against Oklahoma State would do that. So let's get right into this right now. This game, of course, is going to be at 9 p.m. Eastern on FS1. Oklahoma State is technically ranked not by the AP polls, but by the coaches poll at number 22. Boise State favored 4.5 points overall by Vegas and given a 66.4% chance of winning it. Not necessarily where a lot of people thought this, as far as the predictions were going in, not where a lot of people thought these two programs would be. But right now, Boise State favored. Let's talk about why both of these programs could win this game. So first off, 3 reasons why Boise State could win. First, it's on the blue. There are not a lot of teams that come in and win on this blue playing surface. Boise State since 2000, actually, but the database I looked at was 2003. So Boise State since 2003 is number 1 overall in the nation but for win percentage at home. They have a 92.1% win percentage, and they are 105-9 at home on the blue. And it's not like Boise State hasn't played anyone there. Good teams have come in. Oregon came in when they were ranked. Washington came and played us. Washington State came and played us. Oregon State came and played us. We've played Utah State when they were ranked. We played BYU when they were ranked. You know, there have been good programs come and play on the blue, but we've never played a team from the Big 12, like I said, besides TCU, but we've never played a current member of the Big 12, and that is a big matchup. So we're going to see if Oklahoma State's going to try and come in and shake some things up, but it is hard to win on the blue. I'm telling you that. Boise State is also, they're the second most wins overall when coming in as a favorite, which, like I said, they are actually favored in this matchup. They have an 89% win total, 90% win percentage when coming in as a favorite, home or away, with 179 and 22 overall. So this is a big matchup for Boise State in this game because Boise State has a lot to prove in this one, and they are favored, and they're protecting the blue. So that is a big key up front. It is hard to come win on the blue. We're not the biggest of crowds or the biggest of stadiums, but the way that we're shaped, we sure sound like a lot more than the plus 30,000 of us that are gathered for these games. We sure sound like a lot more than that. It is a very intimidating surface. I remember last game, the UTEP game, one of the ESPN commentators, I didn't write down the stat or get where his sources were from on this, but he said something about like the last 4 years, the last 5 years that Boise State has played, they have the most false start penalties against the most opposing teams have the most false start penalties on the Boise State field than any other place in college football. And that's you, Bronco Nation. Bronco Nation is loud, and they are pumped, and it is a very intimidating environment for opposing teams to come in and play. So Boise State, number 1, home winning advantage on the blue. That's our number 1 key. Number 1 reason why Boise State could win this game. The second one, Boise State has something to prove. I already kind of mentioned that, but no Big 12 invite. Oklahoma State, you and the rest of the Big 12, you left us out to dry. Big 12 finally expanding. They should have expanded. Honestly, if the Big 12 had expanded a few years back when they were looking to try and get a conference championship game, instead of petitioning the NCAA to allow them to do a conference championship game without 2 divisions, if they'd actually expanded, I think they'd still be keeping Oklahoma and Texas. So honestly, Big 12 getting what they deserve for not playing fair and expanding at the time and giving some worthy Group of 5 opponents a chance to get in. But Big 12 finally expanding. They took 3 teams from the AAC and 1 independent BYU, but they left Boise State out to dry. So Boise State is playing with a chip on their shoulder after being disrespected, and you don't want to play Boise State with a chip on their shoulder. You don't want to play, most teams don't want to play Boise State, period. That's why we have such a hard time scheduling premier matchups here on the Blue. And props to Oklahoma State for being willing to come and play a one-on-one with Boise State. That is very admirable. Great job by both athletic departments getting this. Boise State deserves this. They absolutely do after how they've played in the past. And props to Oklahoma State for coming and playing on the Blue like they are. But it's going to be challenging. Like I said, that's key number 1. But key number 2, Boise State is playing with been after a little bit being disrespected. But they also have a lot to prove in this matchup because conference expansion is only going to continue. We're not in the final round of conference expansion. More is going to be coming, whether it's the Big 12 expanding up to 14 or more teams, which they really should, considering that they are tied for the smallest Power 5 conference, even with an expansion to 12 teams, since the ACC, the Big 10, and the SEC all have 14-plus teams. And they definitely, none of the 4 teams they're bringing in, while good programs, are going to replace Texas or Oklahoma. So they definitely should expand. Pac-12 potentially going to expand. Rumors right now, no official word, and actually I think they've officially said they're not expanding right now, but that's not going to hold out indefinitely. The Pac-12 is not getting the respect they deserve. They're not getting teams into the playoffs or their winner into the playoffs, and they need to expand to stay relevant. So more expansion is going to come. Boise State needs to win in this game to be able to catch national attention and be able to be deservingly placed into the next round of expansion. And a Big 12 invite or Boise State applying to the Big 12 in the future and getting accepted would be great. And it all starts with a win against a Big 12 program like Oklahoma State and proving that they deserved to be considered and that they deserve to be considered going forward. And when you, like I said, add to the fact that Boise State's season really kind of hangs in the balance in this one, and it is a first big test for the biggest test so far for brand new head coach Andy Avalos. Playing on the Blue is a tough one, but Boise State with something to prove, that is a tough team to play. Third one, Helani and Shakir are back. Helani and Shakir 100% is what I wrote here, and I actually can't confirm that Shakir is 100%. He was limited in the first game. We all know that. And he was limited in the second game, but he played a lot more. He played a lot of snaps in the second game. I believe he's back to 100%, but I didn't find any data. Maybe I just didn't dig deep enough, but I didn't find any data 100% confirming that. But Helani has been 100% confirmed as back as 100%, ready to get back out there. Didn't play in the UCF game and played limited snaps last week, though he looked good in the few touches that he had. He had a touchdown, even though he carried the ball like 4 times. He looked good in the plays that he has, and you don't want to play against a healthy Helani. Helani, we all kind of, when Helani and Bachmeier were going on that great streak in 2019, a lot of people put the acclaim, deservedly so, I think, because based on his performance, but they put the acclaim on Bachmeier. All the wins they put on Bachmeier. Well, Bachmeier's been back, and he's been playing, and Boise State has been winning like they did. And the reason that they haven't been winning like they did, especially last season, was because Helani's out. Helani was out for the majority of last season, or limited for the majority of last season, and he was limited in the first game against UCF, and that hurt Boise State. When Helani plays a game, so the 16 times that Helani has seen game action, regardless of how much he plays, the 16 times that Helani has played game action, he has won 14 out of 16 of those matchups, or the team has won when he's been on the field. But Helani has only lost 2 games. And you know what? He has never lost when he has played a game with the same starting quarterback he had the game before. The 2 losses, he had a loss to BYU when Bachmeier was out, and Cord came in, who was himself dealing with some lingering injuries that would eventually knock him out for good out of his entire playing career. So Helani lost in that game when Cord was in, and then he lost in the bowl game when Henderson, who had been having such an incredible series of 4 games in a row with wins there, when Bachmeier replaced Henderson as the starter and played a big chunk of that matchup, when he was listed as 100%, but he didn't have the experience. He was coming in rusty, and it was really not the right decision, and that wasn't Helani's, at that point, starting quarterback, who he was used to playing with. So Helani, when he's playing with the starting quarterback he had the game before, is undefeated, and overall in his career, 14-16. This is a game changer. This guy is magic. Oklahoma State fans, you're going to look at this guy, and he's not going to necessarily fit the bill as far as on paper what you would think a running back of such a statistical caliber should look like, but man, is he explosive. He has speed, he has hands, he can catch, and he breaks tackles. It takes pretty much 2 or 3 guys to bring him down every time. Even though he's not the biggest guy, he is fast and maneuverable and an incredible talent for Boise State. And then Shakir as well. Even though being hobbled, and again, also not being a wide receiver that is necessarily physically dominating, he is a guy that even in limited action against UCF put up 91 yards and 2 touchdowns on 5 touches, 2 in the first half and 3 in the second. And last week, in 7 touches, he had 166 yards. This is a game changer. Oklahoma State's definitely going to have these 2 guys, or at least Shakir, maybe not Helani. Helani might be a little bit of a surprise for Oklahoma State if they aren't looking back in the film archives and seeing what Helani can do. But they're definitely going to have Shakir circled on this one because both of these players are big keys to Boise State being able to come in and win this game. So the 3 keys overall for Boise State. The game is on the blue. It's on the blue. Boise State has something to prove, and Helani and Shakir are 100%. Like I said, asterisk on that 100% for Shakir. But Shakir definitely looking 100% last week, and definitely backup to form. The coach has really been saving these 2 players for this massive game, trying to make sure that they're fresh and ready to go for this huge matchup. And Helani confirmed at 100%. Okay, so that's the Boise State section. As far as the 3 reasons Boise State could win this game, let's look at why Oklahoma State could win this game. All right, Power 5 might and legacy. Oklahoma State, a great program in their conference, in the Power 5 overall. My second cousin, was the second string punter for Oklahoma State. A few years back, that's how I got the flag. So I've watched a lot of Oklahoma State games, and I've kind of kept up with them after that. I watch them and I root against them against Oklahoma. And when I lived in Oklahoma, Oklahoma State fans were always very welcoming with my Boise State gear, coming around and going, man, we loved how you beat Oklahoma. I mean, I heard that every time I went out with my Boise gear on. So I have a little bit of an affinity for Oklahoma State. I'm not a fan of the Cowboys, but I have a little bit of affinity for the team from Stillwater. And you guys have one of the best burger places in Eskimo Joe's there, right outside campus. So it is a good program, and they have done very, very well against the Group of 5 in general, but also the Mountain West. In the entire history of Oklahoma State's program, going back to the early 1900s and beyond, they are 14-5 against the Mountain West, and they haven't lost against a Mountain West team in what I would call the modern era of college football since the year 2000. Some of these Mountain West wins were back in the 1920s. So overall, 14-5 all time against Mountain West teams, or at least current Mountain West teams. I didn't look at games against Utah or BYU or TCU. I looked against current Mountain West teams. They were 14-5, and since 2000, they haven't lost any, and they do own a win over Boise State. Boise State, of course, going in and losing to Oklahoma State a few years back. I think it was 2018. Yeah, 2018 when Brett Rippon. So going in and losing, Boise State going in and losing to Oklahoma State. But beyond that, this is a team that hasn't lost a game to a Group of 5 team since 2016. The memorable loss to Central Michigan there, second game out of the gate there for Oklahoma State. That was the last time that Oklahoma State lost a game to a Group of 5 program. And the Big 12 has some cards riding on this one as well, because you have to go back to 2019 for the last time that a Group of 5 program beat the Big 12, if you don't count Kansas. If you don't count Kansas, that's the big asterisk. Kansas, pretty much just an honorary member in the football department, at least. Their basketball program is what's good. Honorary football member of the Big 12 at this point. So if you don't count Kansas, and they're just disgustingly horrible record, the Big 12 last lost to a Group of 5 team in 2019 when Kansas State lost number 23 Navy, and the regular season loss last loss that a regular season Big 12 team had to a Group of 5 program was in September 21st, 2019, when TCU lost to SMU by only 3 points. And that's a rivalry game there, too. So this is Oklahoma State coming in. They are a storied program. They're Power 5, might and legacy. That is a big reason. I mean, there's a reason that they don't lose to Group of 5 programs as a rule. And that is going to be a reason that they could win this game. The second one here is size and speed. Now, Boise State might be the favored program in this matchup, but on paper, Oklahoma State is definitely the better team. Recruiting classes comparison, Oklahoma State the last 4 years has a 30 overall recruiting class compared against the nation, 30th, 40th, 30th, and 34th. Boise State, by comparison, has 67th, 65th, 54th, and 57th. So Boise State good by group of 5 standards, but not at all in comparison to Oklahoma State. And when I was doing this research, I went back 10 or more years, and Oklahoma State had a top 50 class every single year. So not necessarily elite among the Power 5 when it comes to recruiting classes, but definitely when you when you compare it to the 129 FBS programs, they're top tier when it comes to recruiting classes. And that shows when you look at their rosters. I mean, just comparing two pretty key areas where height really comes into play, looking at the secondary and the wide receiver core. In the 3 out of 4 of the top wide receivers so far as receiving yards go for Oklahoma State, 3 out of 4 of those guys are over 6 foot tall. They have a 6'3" receiver as well. And a 6 foot, I think it's 6'3", 6'2", and then like 6 foot, and I can't remember what the other one was, but there's tall guys out there in the receiving. And then as far as the defensive backs go, 4 out of the top 6 defensive backs for Oklahoma State, and their top 3 are all over 6 foot tall. So this is a team that has height and speed pretty much throughout the entire program. This is a team that's going to be very, very tough to play against. And you always see that when you see group of 5 versus power 5. You're always going to see that skill divide, which can be overcome with good technique, and it can be overcome with good coaching. And that's going to be a real test of Andy Avalos' first year, see if he can coach his players, because just basically, if they were just running up against each other, hitting pads in practice, the Oklahoma State players with no technique, just pure brute force, are going to overpower the Boise State players. So it's going to come down to how well does Boise State execute the game plan, how well does Boise State execute their fundamentals and their techniques overall. That's what it's going to come down to, and Oklahoma State owns that advantage. So that's a reason that Oklahoma State could win this game. The third one here, and Oklahoma State fans, don't jump down my throat. I know he's not your favorite guy. You probably already know who I'm about to say, but I talked about a key player or players who could win this game for Boise State, and this is the guy who could win the game for Oklahoma State. And that guy is, you know what I'm going to say, Spencer Sanders. Now, I know he's not your favorite guy right now, and I know he struggled against Tulsa, but give the guy a break. He was on COVID protocols the first game. He really didn't practice because of the COVID protocols. He was coming in rusty. He practiced a little bit, but he wasn't, fully up to speed. He came in rusty in that game, and he did enough to get the win. This is a player who in his career has 4,245 yards passing and 959 yards rushing. That's off of ESPN, and I don't think they updated it from the last game. So those numbers are even more. I think he's over 1,000 yards rushing right now. So this is a player with over 4,000 yards passing and over 1,000 yards rushing, a true dual threat quarterback for Oklahoma State here. And that is exactly the kind of quarterback that you want at the helm to beat Boise State. Boise State over the last few years, but definitely over last season, 2020, and coming into this season, has just been really struggled against true dual threat quarterbacks. First game of the season against Dylan Gabriels, he ran all over Boise State. I honestly believe that if UCF had never put the ball in the air once, and it just had Dylan Gabriels run a quarterback draw or a quarterback scramble every single play, maybe hand it off to Bowser a couple times, that UCF would have scored on every single drive, because Boise State couldn't stop him at all. They were able to sack him 3 times when he stuck around in the pocket, but when he took off and ran, it didn't matter if Boise State was in the backfield, which they were very rarely, but it didn't matter if Boise State was in the backfield, because he just kind of did a little jig around him. It looked like when you're playing on NCAA football and you got some 99 team playing against a guy who's like 60 or something, because he was just blasting it, and there was no stopping him. And that is the kind of player that just destroys this Boise State defense, which has a lot of, it's got experience, and it's not necessarily a young defense, but it's just a defense that has at least last season and coming into this year is having difficulty finding its identity and melding together as a unit and getting that team chemistry. And something that can beat up a team that doesn't have good team chemistry, that doesn't have the trust factor established, that each player is going to be covering their gaps and covering their section of the field, is a quarterback who can throw the ball if he needs to, but who can take off with his legs. Is going to kill this Boise State defense if they don't come out with some exceptional and completely huge step up game plan. This is a big reason. Spencer Sanders, first off, is going to be better this game than he was last game. The performance you saw last week is not truly does not truly represent what Spencer Sanders is capable of. I truly believe that. And like I said, I watched pretty much all of Oklahoma State's games last year. That I definitely believe that that is not representative of who Spencer Sanders is. So he's going to be better this year with a full week of practice and a little bit of rust knocked off in that first matchup. But even if he wasn't, even if he played like he did last week, that is still going to be, he's still going to see more results out of this week playing the way he did last week against this Boise State defense than he did against Tulsa, because this Boise State defense struggles against running quarterbacks. So 3 keys to the game for Oklahoma State there, or not, sorry, I'm getting into my head here for my next video. 3 reasons why Oklahoma State could win this game. They, like I said, Power 5 might and legacy, size and speed, and Spencer Sanders. So I'm not going to make a prediction in this video. I will have a video coming out, I think, Wednesday, where I will give my 3 keys to the Boise State versus Oklahoma State game, where I will give a prediction on who's going to win that game and my score prediction. So you're going to have to wait for that, for me to actually give that prediction. But I want to hear from you. I want to hear which of these reasons, or just the teams overall, is going to get the win for that team. Do you think Boise State has this one coming in favored on the blue, a tough place to play? Or do you think that Oklahoma State comes in a lot to prove, you know, coming in with 2-0, so they're coming in with a streak, coming a program that doesn't lose to a lot of Group of 5 programs, coming in and getting what is now an upset. I really think it should be the other way around, but what is now considered, because Boise State's favorite, would be considered an upset on the road against the Broncos. Will they prove that coach that they should be ranked in the AP as well as the coaches poll? Or will Boise State prove that people who discounted them after the UCF game were on the wrong side of history there? We'll see how it ends up working out, and I will give you my prediction on Wednesday, but I want to hear from you. Put it in the comments. Let me know. Boise State, Oklahoma State, who's got this game? If you like this comment, make sure, content. If you like this content, make sure you like and subscribe, and keep an eye out for my video where I give a full team preview of both of these teams with my 3 keys to the game. All right, thank you so much for watching this video, and as always, go Big Blue.